Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about the natal chart of Stephen Paddock. This is the man that went on a shooting rampage in Las Vegas on the date that as far as the date goes that he did this. Of course, the date was October 1st in 2017, and left kill I believe over 50 that are confirmed dead at the time I'm making this video, and also many others that were really they were injured, and I'm sure very seriously in many of them. So anyway, first thing is, I want to go out to the hearts of the families and of the victims, and really and pay my respects and condolences to them. That just a terrible, heinous crime, and it just seems like our violence in America, and it's getting so bad. It's getting really overboard. When is it going to end? We had the thing in the church in the area where I wasn't far from it. It was in Antioch, Tennessee. As many of you heard, it was that Manuel Samson went on his rampage and went into a church. I believe killed 6, injured 1. You may want to check the numbers on that. But anyway, but what I want to talk about is his chart a little bit, and I'm also going to incorporate a little bit of the chart of the shooting as well, so into this video. Anyway, as far as Stephen Paddock goes, well, the first thing I want to get at is talking about his chart is about his Mercury placement. Well, I had to do a solar chart, actually, a solar sunrise chart, which, I mean, because there was no birth time available in the sun position, I put at the point of the ascendant. So in this case, Mercury in this chart falls in Pisces at the dreaded 22nd degree and in the 12th house. So not only he has it at 22 degrees, he has it in its detriment and fall by sign, and also in its accidental detriment and fall as far as the 12th house goes. And so really this is something where, I mean, Mercury in Pisces, of course, I mean, Pisces obviously mean detriment and fall, one of the worst, I mean, about the worst position you can have, really, or as far as the sign by Mercury, I would say it's the worst, and it's also because it's in its fall as well. But another thing too is that not only does he have it by really poorly placed as far as by sign and then house, it's also the ruler of his 3rd house of rational thinking, and it's in the 12th house of restrictions. And this also, what's bad about this too, he's got Mercury in his natal chart, also makes inconjuncts to Saturn and to Neptune, and it also makes an inconjunct to Pluto. And inconjuncts can often be about health issues in astrology, but considering that this is, you're talking about Mercury, and I mean, especially being Mercury in the 12th house, this could be indicators perhaps of maybe some health issues that were mental health issues. Now, whether he had them or not, I mean, maybe, that's something that I haven't confirmed or verified, but I would not be surprised if he did. Another thing too is he was having some transits too to his 12th house. I mean, Neptune transiting his 12th, and this could indicate some kind of confusing, confounding, mysterious mental illness could maybe be set on, maybe. Also, having Chiron there, this could be emotional wounds dealing with this as well, dealing with some kind of confusing mental illness, and things that are tied in with his secret sorrows, and things with self-undoing as well. So also, looking at his chart, I think another thing, what stands out to me is he has, I mean, I'm counting Chiron as part of this. There was a Cardinal Grand Cross, which I count Chiron as part of it. Some people may not look at that as something that would qualify for a Grand Cross, maybe albeit a weak one, but Chiron is involved in it. And also Uranus in Cancer, and he also has, I mean, the Sun Sun involved with it as well, and I mean, and he also had Neptune involved with it. So I mean, there's all kinds. I mean, Grand Cross in a natal chart could be really. I mean, you might feel like there is some cross that you have to deal with in your life, and this could really bring about a lot of exasperation, a lot of frustration, wanting to get things done in a hurry, things not getting done timely enough for you. And part of that grand cross he has is the Sun making a square aspect to Uranus, and this could get very extreme nonconformist type behavior, and it might even be, I don't know what his religious background or anything like that, but in some cases it could even give some iconoclastic behavior. This could be an indicator of a person that really likes to shock people with unpredictable behavior, and really takes nonconformist behavior to an extreme, being like very radical. And also in his chart too, not only does he have the cardinal Grand Cross, this guy Stephen Paddock, but he also has a fixed T-square on top of that. And when you have all these adverse aspects going on, you're talking about tensions and exasperation galore. He has the T-square is involving, okay, the opposition from his moon to Pluto. And then it's got at that focal point, he's got Mars conjunct Jupiter. And you figure that's kind of like that overcompensation point. Mars is also in its detriment in Taurus. And Jupiter, I mean, as I've talked about before, is that Jupiter can be very paradoxical. It's not just about luck and fortune. I mean, it's mainly benign, benevolent planet, granted, but can also expand and enlarge. And this expanded issue of anger could have been a very serious issue with this person, even if he has family members that are contending and claiming, no, we never knew this about him and this and that. I mean, the chart definitely suggests that there were likely some real volatile issues and anger issues. I mean, he also has Mars making a square to Pluto, which could be destructive anger right there. And really, thing about it is having that T-square, I mean, involving, okay, with the moon making an opposition to Pluto, well, that could indicate some difficulties with power and control over emotions. And it could indicate that he might have had some power struggles with dominant women in his life, his family. Whether anyone ever says, any family member says whether there were no contentious issues or not, there may very well have been. And the thing about it too is you have this Mars conjunct Jupiter at that focal point. Well, that could be the overcompensation in dealing with those issues tied into the opposition of the moon to Pluto. So, and they could really indicate maybe some anger issues, that Mars being in Taurus could be very slow and progressive anger, and after reaching the point of endurance really explodes. So, and especially you have that conjunction to Jupiter, which of course can amplify and enlarge that anger. And some other thing I thought was interesting too, some other transits he had. He also was having transit Pluto, making a conjunction to his natal Chiron, or maybe not actual conjunction, but still not far away from his natal Chiron, which could indicate perhaps some wounds that were associated with death. And being in the 10th house in his solar/sunrise chart that I did, is something where he got some notoriety and publicity, but obviously for being infamous and doing something that obviously this was negative publicity. And another thing I took note of is that he also had, Stephen Paddock had the transit North Node making a conjunction to his natal Pluto. Imagine that. And unfortunately, this could have been about some destiny. Maybe if the future was tied into some kind of death. And in this case, not only did he murder a lot of people, he wound up killing himself. as well. And being in Leo, this was done in almost like this flamboyant and dramatic manner. And this was something where maybe it was, unfortunately, this was destined to happen. Maybe that he killed all these people and that he died as well. Now, Pluto, I mean, is really, I call this a very strong planet in this chart. And it really, I mean, it makes a number of aspects. And it also is part of a what I'm looking at as far as, I mean, I'm counting Chiron in this yod configuration formation. Pluto is the apex point in this, and what it is he's got Mercury making a sextile to Chiron, and both those planets make an inconjunct to Pluto. And Pluto being that focal point, unfortunately, this might have been some negative destiny he was connected with, maybe doing something, you know, as far as this murder goes. And also my understanding, he was a big-time gambler. Maybe he was a compulsive gambler, and that could be tied in to maybe that Pluto being the apex point of that yacht. If he was making money in it, maybe that was something positive for him. But at the same time, I mean, I think this could have been, there could have been some negativity in this, and this might have been tied in to where this negative destiny he had lied. I mean, through these murders. And it's an interesting Pluto in this 5th house in the solar/sunrise chart that I did in the house of gambling. And this took place in an area where, I mean, where of course people are notorious for gambling. So figure that. He also had transit Mars in his 6th house, and I mean, this could indicate some, you know, some, obviously when you have transits to the 6th, there can be some health issues. And I mean, and when you're talking about Mars, Mars is associated with gunfire, and he also wound up shooting himself apparently. So that is, maybe that was tied into that transit a little bit. I mean, his health obviously was impacted by gunfire, but in a big way, of course, given that he didn't kill himself, presumably. So anyway, another thing I wanted to touch on, talk a little bit about the chart of the shooting itself. Now, as far as that goes, I mean, you had the ascendant at mercurial, unpredictable Gemini. And then the moon, you have the moon over in Aquarius, which is interesting, which is the same moon sign of the shooter. I mean, maybe you had this loony behavior, this real unpredictable, loony bizarre behavior. Maybe this played a role of it, because he was having the moon was in, at the time of the shooting, was in the same sign of his natal moon. And the thing about it is, in this chart too of the shooting, Pluto was in the 8th house, so it can indicate death that was very, very dark, something dark connected with it, and very destructive. And the thing too is, in the shooting chart, there was Saturn making an opposition to the ascendant, which is basically, I perceive that as the face of the event, the ascendant position. And then you have, I mean, of course, the government was obviously vehemently opposed to it, like it should be. And I mean, Donald Trump, of course, expressed his viewpoints very emphatically on the matter. And of course, he was very, I'm sure, very livid over the situation, and rightfully so. And the thing too about it is, I mean, anything as far as his, far as this chart goes for his, for the shooting, let's see if there's anything else that stands out. Well, you had Mars was in the 4th house of the shooting. And I mean, this is something that really, I mean, this violence and volatile actions obviously was something that may have hit home and felt was close to home to a lot of people. And Mars was also at a critical degree of Virgo at the shooting at 17, let's see, it is 17 degrees, or at least very close to it, if not 17. I'm trying to see it. It was obvious, I mean, very close to 17 degrees, and if not 17. So the thing about it is, I mean, you're still looking at it at least a very close to a critical degree. So because what I was looking at, it's this chart that I drew up has it like at 16 degrees, 59 minutes, 59 seconds, or something like that. Rounded off, it would be 17 degrees. So anyway, and another thing I want to touch up on as far as this shooting goes. Now, the sad reality too is I'm going off a little bit on a Gemini moon tangent here, is that looking into the future, and I don't like to be, any grim or sound morbid or morose or overly pessimistic about things, people, but for the United States, there's something where I think that these situations, I mean, might be getting a little bit worse. They're going to gradually might be getting worse. I'm looking at a transit coming up, and transit Mars is going to exactly conjunct the United States natal Neptune on October 10th. And this could be it could be volatile actions and very intensified toward people that are spiritual, such as Christians. And I mean, you're also going to have Jupiter, oddly enough, is going to enter Scorpio on this same day. And remember, I talked about Jupiter before, that Jupiter can be paradoxical. It's not about always going to be benign, benevolent. It can expand and enlarge. And in this case, I mean, Scorpio is the sign of death. This can be a period where you might see a rise in some deaths. And it's interesting that on the same day, on October 10th, you do have that exact transit conjunction taking place from Mars to the United States natal Neptune. And you're going to have Jupiter enter Scorpio on that same date. So it's just a date, I think, to really look at and really be wary of, as far as something, maybe some deaths connected with people, with spiritual people at this time. So anyway, people, well, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for my take on the natal chart of Stephen Paddock, and of course incorporating some of the chart of the actual shooting itself into this video. And stay tuned next time, where I will be giving you my Gemini November 2017 horoscope forecast. Two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone. Because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart, and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.